Hey, FinCon community, this is Bethany Bayless, and I am here with Robert Farrington of The College Investor. Hi, Robert, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing today?
I am so good, and I'm so excited that you're here to talk to us this morning. We're going to be talking about freelancers and why they're important, right?
They are. They're
Yeah,
super
they're
important. I
so
rely
important.
on them for I rely on them for my business, and I've been one, and I kind of am still sometimes. So it's
Hey,
all good.
I love that. I love that freelancers doesn't necessarily have a specific label of when you can be a freelancer or, all of that. So before we dive into the freelancing questions, can you just describe just for the people who don't know you, just who are you and what is your site about?
Yeah, so I run the College Investor. We have grown into a really large personal finance site. I have a focus around helping people get out of student loan debt and start investing and building wealth early. But we talk about a broad range of financial topics on the website. And we've been doing this for 10 years now. I started this as my side hustle, and this year is our 10-year anniversary. So it's
Oh
crazy.
my gosh, congratulations. It's
I
your 10-year
know.
anniversary. What is that? Is that like the paper anniversary or something? Cotton? I don't
I no,
know.
no, no idea
I don't
there.
either, but it's something special. But that's
Gold. I don't know.
awesome. Ooh, gold. Maybe that.
I
I
don't
need to
know.
look
We'll
that up
see.
to see what special things you should be getting in the mail from people for your 10-year anniversary. And we
I'll send my request your way.
Thank you. Make all requests known to Bethany Bayless at FinCon. Just kidding. But that's awesome. And you said that you rely heavily on freelancers. And why do you do that? What kind of freelancers are you hiring and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, like the first investment I think I made in my blog way back when was to hire a writer to help me create content for my site. And today we have about three writers that I alternate between. Some of them do, more, some of them do less. But yeah, freelance writing is probably the biggest bucket of freelancers. But, I've also had freelancers help me with technical support. I have the Grayson Bell of our community. Grayson's helped me. Like I've had freelancers help me with, social media. Freelancers help me with designing stuff. I am not a particularly good at making things pretty.
Hmm.
So, having someone with a creative expertise. We've hired freelancers for a range of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that there's just so many things that people freelance in. Freelancing doesn't
Totally.
necessarily just mean writing or technical. Like there are so many things that you can be hiring. And have you found that beneficial to hire out freelancers as opposed to hiring like a full-time person? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to running the blog, everything is very project based. And so I like hiring the freelancer because it's like, yeah, I have an article, you write the article, and you get paid for the article. It's just very transactional, very easy. Same thing even with technical support, right? It's, I have a technical problem. You fix the problem and you get paid for it. And so that just makes a lot of sense to me, especially with the ebbs and flows of, everything that goes on online, right?
Totally.
I do like to have a lean business model. I like to have the business of one where it's just me, but, I hire out as needed on a freelance basis. On the flip side, working online is super conducive to that because, I don't have a I mean, I have a set deadline, but I don't care if you want to do it at 2 in the morning or if you want to do it in the 5 in the afternoon or you want to do it on a Sunday. Like, I don't care when you write or whatnot, just as long as you have it in before the deadline. So I think it really is conducive to that.
Oh, it's super flexible because I mean, the deadline, if somebody wants to work on it in the wee hours of the night when their brain is working, then that's a great time to do that. How many freelancers would you say that you've hired in that 10 years? Could you add them all
Man,
up?
shoot, you should have prepped me this. I would have given you a
I'm
count, but I
sorry.
would say probably like 30 or 40 plus, honestly, at this point in time. And so many from the financial and FinCon communities.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, I think I had 20 or 25 different writers that I've hired over time within the FinCon community.
Yeah, and where is the best place? You talked about meeting them in that community. If someone's a freelancer, if they're looking for jobs, or if they're a brand looking for freelancers, where's a good matchmaker for those things?
Yeah. So, I mean, finding people that are already understanding of your niche is huge. So,
Mm.
I've said FinCon because I'm a financial blog, right? But if you're a brand that might have other niches, you might want to go find people that are already active in that community. Another place that I found success is like the Pro Blogger job board. Because these are people that know what blogging is. So it's kind of
Mm.
like if you can't get necessarily your niche, well, then the next thing you want is someone that knows how to write online content.
Yeah.
And you want to find communities like that. And then, like, as a third tier, I really never want to get there, especially when it comes to writing, is something like Upwork.
Okay.
When it comes to writing, I've never found success there. But when it comes to like technical know-how, there's a lot of people on Upwork that are really strong on the technical side, which we don't necessarily have in our community, beyond a certain amount.
That's so interesting because there's just a lot of things that can add to that conversation. And when it comes for brands looking for freelancers, what do you think they should keep in mind? You've already mentioned make sure they're in your niche. You've mentioned this is a good place to find them, but what is there something else that they should keep in mind when they want to find the good fit of freelancing?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to pay for quality.
Oh, good.
Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I hire a lot of freelancers, and you have to pay for it. But
Mhm.
there's two ways to think about this, right? So I kind of like to hire the new up and comers. I pay a little less, but I also understand that I'm going to have to put more work in on the editing and, the polishing piece. On the flip side, if you're a brand and you don't want to invest necessarily in the editing and the polishing, you pay more to have a very experienced freelancer that, can provide that quality for you that might have 10 years of experience. So, you have that whole gambit of talent. And of course, it's very correlated to compensation as well.
Totally. I mean, and paying your people is a big thing, right? You need to do that to be.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I'm sure there's
I don't
horror
know.
stories.
I saw a thread last week in
Yeah.
the FinCon group about someone not getting paid, and that's crazy. Like, you have to pay your freelancers. So, have a contract, have recourse. Like, as a freelancer and as a brand or a business hiring freelancer, it just goes both ways. Like,
Totally.
set out your terms, set out how much you're going to get paid, whether there's a deposit or not a deposit. Like, make it very clear and transparent. And it seems tedious, and it is, but it's very worth it. And especially once you do it once or twice, it becomes much less tedious, and you have a system and you have a form and you have it all set out.
Well, totally. And I mean, I always say get a contract even if you're a friend, but especially if they're a friend, because you're defining those boundaries ahead of time. So when conflict maybe arises, you have it set out beforehand, right?
Totally. And, it doesn't have to be conflict. Like, things change. Like, maybe they ask for an article with 2 months lead time. And then, like, for whatever reason, that article is getting killed. But you as a freelancer, did you have a kill clause? Like, are you going to get paid half for the work that you might have put in already? Like, you have to lay some of these things out. And it's especially true if you're a freelancer that's working with major brands. I think as a blogger community, the blog brands and stuff, they are going to be much more flexible, narrower timelines. But I mean, when I've been a freelancer and I've worked for major banks, like, some of these banks, like, they have like 6-7 month out timelines. So it's like, you get hired for a project from now, and then, like, it can not even get published from 9 months from when you start the whole thing. And so it's crazy. And then sometimes these banks use, a marketing firm. And so, like, you're actually a freelancer for the marketing firm, and the marketing firm is working for the bank, and it can really get ugly. So define exactly what you're getting.
Well, and I love that too. So we're talking and we're kind of hinting at it, but when it comes to being a freelancer, what are some things that people need to have set in place ahead of time before they start working with brands? So like we talked about the contract, but is there a system about being a freelancer that can help you get organized, or things going into it that are just best practices of freelancing?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to understand the brand you're working with. What are they looking for in voice too? Because a bank might want, like, no personality. Like, we're just going to have a dictionary entry for a blog post. On the flip side, like, I know there's companies out there that really want the personal voice and brand. So, like, as a writer, you need to know what you're writing for, because there's nothing worse than writing something and then asking it to all be revised because you didn't use the right voice or tone or style. And then on the flip side, you might hate doing that work, right? So if you're a writer that like really enjoys like writing in first person and sharing fun stories, like it will be painful to write something that's not that. And so one, maybe you don't want to do it. Two, if you're going to do it, maybe you want to be compensated differently, right? And then just be organized. So I'll tell you the number one reason I fire freelancers for is just not meeting their deadlines. So it's that simple. Like if the due date is April 5th, have it in by April 5th, not April 7th. Like, don't make me hunt you down. Like, I'm not like, and it's not like I'm also asking you to like turn it in 2 days. Like usually we give a couple weeks. So it's kind of like, just be on time, be early, like follow through on the deadline. I would say, and that's kind of a common theme that I've heard from other people that hire freelancers too, is tardiness is literally the number one reason you get fired. Number two is probably work quality, but I would say 75% of it is all just deadlines.
So your dream
You're looking at me shocked, like, and I've hired quite a number of freelancers. So yeah,
and I think that that's so important. Like these are things like be someone that people want to work with, and meeting your deadlines is a huge part of that. So if you had like a dream freelancer, like this, the perfect freelancer in the entire world, they're meeting their deadlines, they know your company, they know what you're doing. What else would you add to that perfect freelancer person?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. And then it's like, do they know like where we're going? Like, do they suggest ideas and stuff? And so like, I mean, there's the thing is like, especially if you're a writer, right? You've written a bunch of content, like maybe you've gotten a theme, like you kind of understand, like, and then in your research for your pieces, maybe you see like 2 or 3 other tangents that like they haven't suggested to you. Bring those up. Say like, hey, while I was researching X company, I noticed Y company, right? Like maybe we should do something about Y company because you haven't covered them before. And that like really is cool because I have that, and it's cool to see, but that's how you kind of take it to the next level, is really try to contribute more. And then part 2 is you probably just got yourself more work. Like
that's such a good point, because like, sometimes I think when I freelance, like, oh, well, they just want my work. They don't want my opinion, or they don't want my ideas, but you're saying that that's welcome most of the time.
Most of the time, because like we have an idea, but maybe we don't know like part 2 of the idea, or like this tangent to the idea, or like maybe as you wrote the article, like I said, you found something else out that's not covered, that doesn't warrant necessarily like, or maybe it warrants its own article, right? And so those are things that are huge. And like I said, like you might have just bought yourself another article basically by suggesting the idea, like turn in your article, turn it on time, have it be great quality, and say like, hey, while I was researching this, you might want to check this out. Here's an article idea. Let me know if you want me to write it. Then boom, you might have got yourself another article.
I think that's brilliant. That's incredible, because it's a way to keep like being the perfect freelancer. Now let's flip it. Okay. So if I am a freelancer and I am working with, and you're a freelancer, what is the dream brand that you're working with? What is the dream, like the things that they want from you, or how they communicate with you?
Yeah, so clear expectations. I would say clear deadlines with enough time, because like it drives me nuts. Like sometimes on these bigger platforms, so there's also freelancer platforms like Contently and Skyward and these things where these brands are connecting with freelancers. Like I'll get a pitch on like Friday and it says like, hey, can you have this submitted by like 4 p.m. on Monday? And it's like, if you don't respond within like, 24 hours, like you lose your article. And it's like, and that's really kind of shitty. Like, sorry, but like, it really is. If you're a freelancer, like you want to be able to plan out your life too, because that's the whole point of being a freelancer. Like you're probably a freelancer because you enjoy the flexibility. Maybe you have kids or you just have a life outside of your job. And so you're trying to fit this in. So, I think time is huge. And then, fair compensation. We don't write for exposure.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, following up with, prompt payment, I think when it's all said and done. So like, you shouldn't have to go fight a battle to get paid, on an article as well.
Well, and I love that too, because I've had companies come to me and say, what would be good compensation? I'm thinking $25 an article. And I'm thinking, wow, that's not a lot, but there are people who would take the 25 an article in order to, if they do a ton of them, they knock them out. They're like, hey, this is so much, this much money for a week. So what do you think when it comes to pricing yourself and your services, and how low should you go? And, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start somewhere. So when I started freelance writing, and I think I started freelance writing almost like 8 years ago, like this was when blogging, like a 300-word article was like all you needed. And so I think I priced myself at like $20 for like a 300-word article.
Wow.
But on the flip side, I could write that 300-word article that required no like thought in about 10 to 15 minutes. So you have to ask yourself, what is it going to take? And it's very variable too, right? Like if it was asking you for an 800 to 1,000 word article, but on the flip side, it also required nothing from you, like it's just all in your mind, that's a little reasonable, little lower price. But what if they want you to do sources? What if they want you to interview somebody? Even if it's a shorter article, that's honestly going to take you more time. So you need to raise your rates to reflect that. And so it's really variable. And and then also like, are you like known, right? Like, are you getting an author byline? Are you ghostwriting it? Like all of these things are factors that you need to consider in your pricing. But like, you're definitely, if you're going to be a new freelancer, you're probably maybe not even going to get a byline. You're probably going to be a ghostwriter. You're probably going to write like, 800 words, but hopefully it's like in your niche, so you don't have to think too much about it. And on the flip side, you're not going to get paid very much.
Yeah.
Then, like you move up the scale, and like 8-10 years later, you're bylined, you're writing longer pieces, and you're probably getting compensated very well for it. So, it really is hard to say.
Yeah, and it comes down to how much are you getting paid an hour? Like if you're getting paid $20 for 15 minutes worth of work, you're essentially getting $80 an hour? Is that what that comes out to? $80. I mean, that's pretty good as opposed to if you're getting $20 and spending 10 hours on it. I'm not even going to do that math.
Right.
Because your hourly is, you might as well like go do something else for that much money. So it comes down to how much time you're putting into it, how much effort, how much thought, and all of that. Right.
And I think that's what brands and stuff have to realize too. So I've also seen brands like, they want you to interview, 2 experts. Well, like the interview time alone and coordinating that is going to be a lot of money and a lot of time. And then you want me to write an article on top of that, but then they're like not necessarily paying commensurate with what they're asking for. So it's really important to just keep that in mind as you're, working through this.
Yeah, totally. And as a freelancer, do you compare notes with other freelancers?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like there's a big middle, but it's like, I think every freelancer knows like the bottom 10%. And probably every freelancer knows the top 10% of where you want to work, and who's paying and what those job offers are, because, there's definitely good and bad. I think there's a big middle area, but yeah, I mean, word gets around, especially if you treat someone bad, but also if you treat someone good. Sadly, it's not as often, but like when something goes wrong, like word gets around.
Yes, and I think that goes for a lot of things, but
totally,
especially as freelancers, because there's going to be a thread in the FinCon community talking about who didn't pay them, or whatever. No, I don't.
Right, and it's a pain in the butt, and like those are people's lives and livelihood that really makes a difference to somebody, and like just yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add to all of our conversation today?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things I would say too is like as a brand, when you're looking at hiring a freelancer too, I think it's important to think about the ROI you get. So especially when you're creating content, like, are you just throwing, even if it's like, especially for bigger brands, because I don't know, this is like my word of advice for these large brands that are hiring freelancers is a lot of them create really crappy content. And it's not necessarily the freelancer's fault. And the freelancer probably hates writing that article. So maybe this is a help for the freelancers too, because it's like your article topic was terrible. It's not going to do anything for your brand or business or content marketing strategy. And you're paying someone to do it. So I think the big thing is that you need to treat a freelancer and a freelance work as an investment like you would treat any other kind of investment. And the work product ideally needs to pay some kind of value to reflect itself in your business, right? Whether it's you're trying to get traffic, you're trying to get social shares, you're building a landing page, you're creating an email that's supposed to convert, like whatever it is you're paying for, even if it's repair, right? Like, oh, my site broke. Well, there's a clear ROI. Like, I'm trying to get repair, or I'm crafting all these social media images. Am I getting the social shares? Like, you have to have an ROI on whatever you're paying for. And I think a lot of the brands really just need to keep that in mind as they hire freelancers. And then the freelancers can probably help you if you just let them, like, especially if they know what they're doing. They could probably craft content for you that might help align with your ROI goals. But you got to kind of share that. So, yeah.
I think that's great. And you're just so knowledgeable in all these things. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at thecollegeinvestor.com or on any social platform of your choosing. Same hashtag.
Amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thanks, Robert Farrington, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. See you.
All right.